Welcome to our Sunday reflection for August 2026. We are really grateful you could join us today for this conversation.
Yes, thank you for making the time to be here with us. It is the 18th Sunday in Ordinary Time, and we have some incredibly powerful texts to look at.
We really do. Today we are exploring this profound intersection of physical hunger and spiritual hunger. And, we are looking at how the infinite compassion of Christ basically demands a response of agape love and social justice from us in our modern world.
Which is not an easy demand, by the way. I mean, we are drawing from the miraculous feeding of the multitudes in Matthew's Gospel,
Yeah.
St. Paul's assurances in his letter to the Romans, and Isaiah's prophetic invitations.
Right, and the mission here today is to examine those ancient texts through the lens of modern parish life, community struggles, and, well, our actual duty to the vulnerable. So I want to start by asking you to imagine receiving the absolute worst news of your life.
Oh, the kind of news that just drops your stomach to the floor.
Exactly, the kind that makes the world stop spinning. In that moment, your only human instinct is to retreat, to hide under the covers and completely shut out the outside world.
It is basic self-preservation.
But imagine you finally manage to find a quiet, isolated place to process that profound grief, and when you look up, there are 5,000 people standing in front of you.
Just waiting for you.
Waiting for you. They are hungry, they are sick, and they are demanding your immediate help. What do you do in that situation? Because that scenario is exactly what we encounter in the Gospel of Matthew for today's liturgy.
It really is. Jesus has just received devastating news, the brutal execution of John the Baptist. And understandably, he withdraws in a boat to a deserted place to seek solitude and grieve.
But the crowds, they figure out where he is heading.
They do. They follow him on foot along the shore. So when he steps off that boat and sees this vast multitude, the text tells us his heart is moved with pity. Instead of turning them away to protect his own emotional sanctuary, he cures their sick and feeds 5,000 men plus women and children.
With just 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish.
Right, and he does it with such radical abundance that they actually have 12 wicker baskets of fragments left over.
See, this text creates a massive friction point with our contemporary culture. Because if I take this exact scenario to, say, a modern psychologist today, the immediate advice I am going to get is to set firm boundaries.
No, absolutely. Practice self-care. Protect your peace.
Right, because modern capitalism essentially conditions us to treat human energy like a smartphone battery. Every interaction, every demand on our time, it drains that battery. And once it hits 1%, you have to unplug from the world or you will completely burn out.
Which is a very rational way to look at modern life, honestly.
It is. So when we see Jesus in a state of profound personal grief, simply ignoring those boundaries to pour himself out for a crowd of thousands, it looks like a recipe for total collapse. How does this model of charity function without completely destroying the person giving it?
Well, that tension points directly to the difference between our modern transactional empathy and the concept of agape love.
Meaning agape operates on a different metric entirely.
Exactly. Agape is a love that inherently transcends those personal barriers. It is sacrificial action for the common good. There is a reflection from Creighton Online Ministries for this week, and it frames this beautifully by noting that Jesus shares love and grace without end. He is completely unconcerned with running out of resources.
So the battery analogy just does not apply to him.
No, because God's love does not operate on a finite battery system. It is poured out freely, wantonly, well beyond our calculated, rational needs. The exhaustion we feel in modern life, it often stems from trying to ration our compassion. We are constantly calculating whether we have enough energy to care.
We are guarding our reserves.
Yeah.
But Christ's action demonstrates a compassion that generates its own sustenance. It reframes the entire mechanism of compassion, really. Instead of battery that drains with use, this text suggests agape love operates more like a solar panel.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, the actual act of turning outward, of projecting warmth and connecting with the needs of others, that is the very thing that generates the spiritual energy required to keep going. It completely disrupts the scarcity mindset.
And that scarcity mindset is precisely what the children's liturgy materials from the Diocese of Hamilton address this week. They draw this crucial theological line from the multiplication of the loaves back to the ancient Exodus story.
With the manna in the desert.
Right. When the Israelites were wandering in the desert, God provided manna to sustain them each day. But whenever the people succumbed to fear and attempted to hoard the manna for tomorrow.
Operating out of that exact scarcity mindset.
Exactly. When they tried to hoard it, the food spoiled and bred worms. The Hamilton reflection highlights how Jesus transitions this historical provision into an offering of himself as the true bread from heaven. Earthly bread, when hoarded out of fear, perishes. But the spiritual nourishment Christ offers is given away freely, and because of that, it endures eternally.
Shifting our focus a bit to how a person actually sustains that kind of love when life becomes genuinely unbearable, we encounter the writings of the Apostle Paul in our second reading today.
From the letter to the Romans.
Yes, Romans. Paul uses this soaring, triumphant rhetoric. He asks, what will separate us from the love of Christ? Will anguish or distress or persecution or famine or nakedness or peril or the sword?
It is a beautiful sentiment.
It is beautiful, but frankly, it is incredibly easy to quote the letter to the Romans when life is comfortable, when the pantry is full, and when our physical safety is totally secure.
Well, Bishop Edward Malesic of the Diocese of Cleveland provides some vital historical context here that anchors Paul's words in brutal reality. If anyone on earth had a legitimate physical reason to question the presence of God's love, it was Paul.
Because his life was anything but comfortable.
Right. We are talking about a man who endured literal shipwrecks, severe physical beatings, multiple imprisonments, and the constant crushing anxiety of managing early Christian communities while actively being hunted by the authorities.
So he knew what peril and the sword actually looked like.
Intimately. And despite all of that lived trauma, Paul concluded that God's love is categorically stronger than every earthly trial. Bishop Malesic points out that the only actual way to separate ourselves from this love is the willful, conscious refusal of it.
Okay, I have to push back a little on how we apply this theology today, though, because it runs the risk of becoming incredibly patronizing.
How so?
Well, if I am sitting in a comfortable studio telling someone who is facing actual famine or the literal sword of a modern war zone that they are not separated from God's love, it sounds like I am spiritualizing away their very real physical agony. How does this theology survive contact with the harsh reality of starvation and systemic violence without minimizing human suffering?
That is a crucial question. And we find the answer by looking at the responsorial psalm appointed for today, which proclaims, "The hand of the Lord feeds us."
Psalm 145.
Yes. Paul is not suggesting for a second that the suffering does not exist, nor is he trying to put some positive spin on the brutality of famine or violence. What he is declaring is that God's love is intimately, stubbornly present within the suffering itself.
It is inside the trial, not a removal from it.
Exactly. And crucially, that divine love most often manifests through the physical, calloused hands of the faithful acting in solidarity. It is not just an abstract concept up in the clouds, it is an action.
Taking form in the community.
Right. The Creighton Reflection cites St. Faustina's famous prayer, "Jesus, I trust in you." The theology survives contact with reality because God's love is not measured by the absence of hardship, but by his faithful, sustaining presence, navigating humanity through those trials, frequently utilizing the community to deliver that presence.
For those of you listening who are seeking trusted, thoughtful guidance to navigate these exact kinds of complex moral questions in an increasingly noisy world, Clara Horatio offers a space for meaningful reflection. It is a resource designed specifically to help you engage deeply with narratives that matter, fostering clarity and purpose as you navigate your own daily spiritual journey.
And returning to our texts, the prophet Isaiah extends a radical invitation that echoes this theme of divine provision we were just talking about.
In the first reading.
Right. Isaiah writes, "You who have no money, come, receive grain and eat, drink wine and milk." But he does not stop at the invitation. He immediately questions the prevailing economic logic of his society, asking, "Why spend your money for what is not bread, your wages for what fails to satisfy?"
Isaiah is essentially describing an economy of grace there, and it is a total ground-up disruption of the transaction-based capitalist mindset we operate under today.
Oh, completely. It upends it.
We live in a society where a person's value is almost strictly tied to their purchasing power, their productivity, and their economic status. I ask you, our listener, to think about your own Amazon purchase history or your credit card statement over the last month. Isaiah's ancient critique demands that we look at those transactions and ask, is this truly feeding my soul, or am I just consuming my wages on things that leave me chronically empty?
This ancient critique forms the absolute bedrock of the Christian duty regarding stewardship and social equity. True love of neighbor, this agape we have been discussing, it cannot be reduced to a private, internal feeling of goodwill.
It requires movement.
It demands active structural solidarity with the poor, the sick, and the imprisoned. If Christ freely gives himself as the bread of life without cost, Christians bear a non-negotiable moral obligation to push back against systemic injustice and the inequitable hoarding of resources.
Which circles right back to the lesson of the manna in the desert.
Precisely. Wealth and resources hoarded out of selfishness do not just sit idle. They actively spoil and rot the moral fabric of a community, just like the manna bread worms when the Israelites tried to hoard it.
We can actually observe how this active structural solidarity is being practically applied in local communities this very weekend. The Association of Catholics in Ireland, or ACI, has published prayers of the faithful that firmly root the liturgy in immediate pressing societal needs.
Taking the theology and applying it directly to the present moment.
Exactly. They are offering specific vocal prayers for those dedicating their lives to housing the homeless and feeding the hungry. They are also praying for the physical safety of all road users during the busy August bank holiday weekend.
Bringing the sacred right into the mundane realities of travel.
Yes, and most profoundly, they include a blunt, necessary prayer for victims of abuse in our church, asking God to teach the community how to act in genuine solidarity and pursue relentless justice for those traumatized by representatives of the Catholic faith.
That is such a vital, active form of prayer. And across the ocean, we see another practical manifestation at Christ the Divine Shepherd Parish in Pennsylvania. They are really demonstrating how to feed a flock, both spiritually and physically.
What does their parish life look like this weekend?
It is a testament to communal action. They are hosting a retreat led by Dr. Michelle Therian to deepen adult discipleship. They are celebrating the feast of St. John Vianney to pray for their priests.
So they are covering the spiritual nourishment.
Right, but also the physical and relational. For the youth, they organized a splash bash to build fellowship. And for the older members of their congregation, they are hosting a senior potluck luncheon. At that luncheon, a parishioner named Pete Bobich is sharing his personal conversion story, demonstrating the life-changing power of faith in real time.
Looking at a list of parish activities like a splash bash or a senior potluck, it is easy for a skeptic to dismiss them as mere summer distractions or social clubs. But the ACI source provides a litany of hope that forces us to view these events through a completely different lens.
How do they define hope?
They define hope not merely as trusting in what God has promised, but as the power by which we firmly and constantly long for what we were placed on earth to do.
Oh, wow. That redefines hope entirely.
It really does. It strips away the comforting, passive notion of hope as mere optimism for a better tomorrow. It elevates it to an active, muscular moral duty to fulfill our earthly purpose today.
When you synthesize these everyday parish activities with that muscular definition of hope, it reveals the church operating at its highest calling. It functions as a field hospital for a broken world.
And a field hospital is not a pristine, quiet clinic.
No, it is a place of messy triage where people arrive wounded, exhausted, and hungry. The music selected by the Diocese of Auckland for this season, including hymns like In the Breaking of the Bread and The Cry of the Poor, it reinforces this theology. Hope becomes an action.
Becomes tangible.
Right. Whether it is through the heavy work of advocating for the abused, organizing a spiritual retreat, or simply gathering the elderly for a parish potluck so they are not eating alone, the physical community is becoming the hands of the Lord. They are the hands that open to feed, comfort, and bandage the vulnerable.
The overarching pattern across all these texts and modern examples is just undeniable. Today's readings from Isaiah, the Apostle Paul, and the Gospel of Matthew reveal a God who absolutely refuses to abandon humanity in our moments of physical or spiritual starvation.
He steps right into the middle of it.
He does. And in turn, the mandate placed upon us is clear. We are called to reject the exhausting idolatry of wealth, to pull our vulnerable neighbors close in their suffering rather than pushing them away, and to actively participate in the breaking of the bread. We have to force this economy of grace into our local neighborhoods.
We want to leave you with a final thought to carry into your week. We have reflected deeply today on Jesus offering himself as the bread of life, willingly broken to satisfy a starving world.
Which is a heavy, beautiful reality to sit with.
It is. So as you navigate the days ahead, your commute, your workplace, your family dinners, consider this. If you are truly nourished by this unconditional agape love, in what specific ways are you allowing your own time, your own resources, and your own heart to be broken and shared with those around you who are desperate for justice and compassion?
May that question agitate your comfort and guide your actions in the week to come. Thank you for sharing this space of contemplation with us, for engaging with the heavy demands of these ancient texts, and for carrying this reflection out the door and into the reality of your daily life.